What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to my Sunday pre-release guide. In this video, we will cover everything there is to know to build a very strong Sunday, from his relics, his build, his best teams, his light cones, and his pull priorities. So if you enjoy this type of content, let me know by liking the video, leaving a comment in the comment section below, and consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get right into the guide. Sunday's coming for a lot of the current harmonies, necks, and jobs because he has everything that they have in their own kit that makes him special, and they throw it all onto one character. And in a lot of team compositions, that means that it opens up a whole new slot for you to slot in another harmony or even another damage amplifier or secondary DPS if you really want to. He has a 100 action advance on a single target and his summon, and it also gives you a crit damage and a damage bonus increase as well as a dispel. This may sound very similar, and it's because it is. We have this exact same thing except for the summon part in a current character in Bronya. This is why Bronya has been good the entire time she's been out, pretty much since release. And Sunday pretty much has the exact same thing, but he has the added benefit of actually action advancing the summon, which benefits characters like Jin Yuan, for example. He's also much more SP friendly because after you use your ultimate one time, his skill becomes essentially free as long as you continue to use it as on the same enemy you use your ultimate on. And this part pretty much steps on the toes of another harmony character that we have in Sparkle, because her whole shtick is to be super SP friendly. So now there's two harmonies already that lost their job, but he also with his ultimate has the ability to energy battery a single ally, pretty much like Ting Yun has been the queen of this for the entirety of her lifespan on the game, and now Sunday is here to take her job. So already three harmonies that before this were supposed to be really strong, now they're still really strong, but now Sunday does everything that they do just by himself. And then if that wasn't enough, on top of all of that, he still gives your DPS a 20% crit rate bonus, which is insane. This is one of the rarest buffs that we can get. I think only a few characters have crit rate buffs for the teammates. I think Sparkle's Lycon is one of them, and Fushuan is one of them, and now Sunday is also one of them. Now it's very strong. The 20% crit rate allows you to pretty much build characters with suboptimal crit rate values, so it's really strong. But right now, arguably, Sunday is looking to be one of the strongest characters we have on the game. Insane value for your account, and this is without even the summon meta being a thing as of right now, because he will get better as time goes on. Going over her kit, he has a standard basic attack dealing 100% damage to a single enemy, which is nothing too crazy. Everybody has that. Now his skill is where he starts getting spicy. His skill is very similar to Bronya's. In fact, is exactly like Bronya's in the way it works. But not only does it advance the target, it also advances its summon. So summons are explicitly said that they are summons, kind of like Jin Yuan. It says summon Lightning Lord, or Numbi summon Topaz, or summon Numbi. If it says summon on the character description, then it is considered a summon. There's another name for this in the future, which is going to be servants, which belongs to the remembrance path, but that is something we're going to be getting further on in 3.0. But as I was saying, Sunday advances the target and also their summon, which is insane because potentially you can have two different sources of DPS, all from one action advance, which is insane. And for those of you who want to run Lingsha or crit DPS Lingsha, yes, this also works with the bunny. So yeah, it does. However, the skill gives 30% damage bonus to the target, and if the target has a summon, it gives an extra 50% to the summon. So in total, it's 30% to the ally and then 80% to the summon. The crit rate buff is also tied to this skill. So if you use a skill, not only you're getting action advance damage bonus, you're also getting a 20% crit rate, which is insane. Now the icing on the cake is that if you use the skill on the Beatified, which is something that your ally gets from the ultimate, which we're going to talk about next. If you use a skill on the Beatified, the skill pretty much refunds you the skill point you just used, so it becomes essentially free. Absolute craziness with the skill. It's just one of the best skills I've ever read in my life. Now his ultimate is very similar to 4-star Ting Yun's. In fact, it works the exact same way. You do the ultimate, you select a target ally, and that ally is going to have their energy regenerated, and then that ally is going to have the energy regenerated by a minimum of 40, but it can scale off 20% of their max energy. So let's say, for example, Yunli and Firefly that have more than 200 energy, their energy is going to be regenerated by 48 instead of 40 because it is 20% of their max energy, unless it's going to regenerate less than 40. So it's always going to regenerate 40 unless you have more than 200 energy, essentially. Hopefully that made sense. TLDR, if you're not Yunli or Firefly, you're going to regenerate 40. If you are Yunli and Firefly, you're going to regenerate 48. But for future characters, if they have more than 200 energy, then it's going to be the 20% of that max energy. Now, at the same time, the ultimate is going to give a designated ally the beatified stage, which is going to increase your crit damage by 30% of Sunday's crit damage plus 12%. The scaling of this is a lot less than Sparkle and a lot less than Bronya. However, it's still pretty strong, and it also lasts for 3 turns, which is perfect because with the beatified lasting for 3 turns, it gives you just enough time with the proper build, mind you, which I'm going to share later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. With the proper build, we can guarantee 100% uptime on that beatified stage, making every skill free. Using Sunday's technique will enable the first use of Sunday's skill to additionally increase the damage dealt by 50%, going from 80 for the main target and 130 for the summon. That's a hefty damage bonus if you ask me. Additionally, one of his traces can dispel one debuff from the skill target, so whenever it's pretty much the same thing as Bronya. And then the only thing that we haven't discussed as of right now is that he also regenerates 25 energy when the battle starts, and this makes it to where he can fire off his ultimate pretty much after the first skill on turn 1. Mind you, he has to be properly built for that. Speaking of the build, if you already have built up a Bronya or a Sparkle, then you kind of have an idea already on how you build your Sunday because they build themselves pretty similarly. However, there is a little bit of caveats in regards to what speed you're going to want your Sunday to have, but it really depends on what DPS you're running with Sunday and how you're running that DPS with Sunday. But speaking of his relic builds, his best in slot is going to be the new Secreto set, which will give him 6% speed and also increases the skill's target by 36% crit damage. So this is pretty much a no-brainer. He's going to be using his skill pretty much every turn, and every turn you use that skill, the target is going to have increased crit damage by 36%, which kind of compensates for his lack of crit damage buff by himself, because his crit damage buff is a lot less than Bronya and a lot less than Sparkle and slightly less than Bronya. So with the Secreto set, you can kind of make up for that. However, if you haven't had luck with the Secreto set, his second best in slot is going to be the Messenger set, increasing his speed by 6% and then also increasing the ally speed by 12% upon firing the ultimate. And like I said before, in a proper build, you're going to be able to do this for every third turn, which is pretty good. The only thing I don't like about Messenger set is that this Messenger set buff only lasts for 1 turn, and the 12% increase in speed for just 1 turn makes it really hard for you to speed tune your team correctly, which I personally don't like. I'd rather just run Secretos and have guaranteed speed tuning instead of the speed alternating every 3rd turn. So that's my take. If you don't want to burden yourself with tedious speed tuning with the Messenger set, then I can recommend also doing the 2-piece Messenger and the 2-piece Secretos, giving you 12% speed on Sunday, making him really strong. So if you add the 12% speed on Sunday plus the speed boots, it only makes it to where you need only 1 roll in speed to get 134, which is one of the recommended speed breakpoints for a Sunday. As far as planar sets go, there's a couple avenues you can take, but the best in slot avenue, in my opinion, is going to be the Lushaka set for the 5% energy recharge rate and the 12% attack buff on the main DPS. The 5% energy recharge rate makes it much easier to get your ultimate in 3 turns, and I will go over energy requirements in depth after or in the Lycone section. But speaking of planers, if I had to recommend which ones to go for, I would say Lushaka first, then the Von Walk, and then the Benaconi set. It's mainly because of the 5% energy recharge rate, which makes it way more comfortable for you and way less RNG heavy for you to get that ultimate every 3rd turn. This may vary depending on what Lycone you're going to be using. If you're going for a signature Lycone, the 5% energy recharge rate is not that important, so you could go for Broken Keel in that scenario, but I will always prefer the Lushaka set instead. As far as the stats you want to aim for Sunday, you mainly want to focus on crit damage and speed. However, depending on the build, you don't want to over invest in speed or under invest in speed. It's very nuanced depending on what type of team you're trying to run. So you can go for the -1 speed setup, we can have your Sunday have 1 less speed than your main DPS, and that way your DPS can get his turn, and then Sunday can action advance him again, essentially getting 2 for 1 turns, which is very good. It's been a strategy that's been a thing ever since the beginning of the game because of Bronya. For this, there's no specific speed tuning other than that 1 less speed requirement, because you can do this at any speed point. You can do this at 135, 134, 160, 159. It really doesn't matter as long as the DPS is 1 or more speed less than their main DPS. You can also run the Sunday having exactly 135 speed, which is a lot of what people are going to go for. 135. Any people are going to go for anywhere from 135 to like 137. That's pretty much the range of most people that I've talked about with Sunday. But this essentially makes it to where if your DPS is faster than that, then your DPS is going to guarantee itself at least 2 turns in the same cycle, which is really good. This can also be combined with a hyperspeed sparkle. So if you have a 135 speed Sunday, 161 speed sparkle, and then an attack boot DPS, sparkle can go ahead and action advance the DPS, make it take a turn, and then once they take a turn, Sunday will go ahead and take a turn right after that, making the DPS get like 4 buff turns in one cycle, which is really strong. Finally, you can use a hyperspeed Sunday. Since the skill is essentially free every time you do it, you can pretty much spam it as your heart pleases. So if your DPS is not that fast, let's say you have a really slow DPS, Sunday is at 161 speed, essentially your DPS has 161 speed, which is really, really good too. Now, all in all, you have to adjust your speed stat depending on what type of Sunday you want to run, essentially is what I'm saying. Now, the stats to focus on are going to be crit damage, speed, effect res, and then HP and defense at the end. So if you can get a piece with all of those, is perfect. As far as chest is obviously crit damage because you scale your ultimate's crit damage buff via your own crit damage. So the higher your own crit damage, the higher the ultimate buffs. The boots is going to be speed boots for obvious reasons. You really want to make sure that Sunday is at least a 134 speed at the very lowest. Orb doesn't matter that much, but if you can pick an HP or a defense orb for a little bit more survivability. My current one is a quantum orb because that's the only one that can get crit damage and speed stubs. So yeah, like it's not that important, but if you can choose HP or defense for a little bit more survivability. And then finally, the rope is obviously the energy recharge rope because this is essential for the 3-turn ultimate setup. Let's talk about his light cones now. Obviously, his best in slot is going to be his signature light cone. With this light cone, you're going to be able to consistently fire off your ultimate every 3rd turn, regardless if you get hit or not, and regardless if you have a 5% energy recharge rope planar set or not. The light cone pretty much guarantees you the 3-turn ultimate. The signature light cone also makes Sunday a lot more SP positive, giving you a lot more economy for the characters that need more skill points, kind of like in Lune if you don't have him E2. Or even if you do have me too, he still uses skill points. So the light cone makes him a lot more SP friendly. And on top of that, it also increases the damage dealt by your designated ally by up to 45%, which in Sunday's case has a 100% uptime because you'll be able to ult, like I said, every 3rd turn. This is an amazing light cone. It provides a lot of value and by far the best option for him. However, the 2nd best option is actually not bad at all, and it's a light cone that everybody should have at this point. And this is Bronya's light cone. This light cone is essentially a budget, a mini kit version of Sunday's light cone because it gives everything that the signature light cone gives, but a little bit less. So for example, Bronya's light cone gives you 10% energy recharge. It's not quite the same as the energy from signature light cone, but the 10% energy recharge gets you the 3rd turn ultimate more often than not if you have him on the Lushaka and then the energy recharge rope. It also gives him a little bit of a skill point efficiency because you do get that skill point back on every other ultimate use or every other 2nd ultimate use. And then it also increases the target's damage as well as its own light cone. Obviously, it's not the exact same. Bronya's light cone is significantly worse, but it does the exact same thing, but a lot less effective. So if you just have enough to pull for Sunday and not his light cone, and you have Bronya's light cone, that's perfectly fine. Like it's a really, really good light cone. Sunday can also take advantage of Sparkle's light cone because he does recover skill points every time he skills on the Beatified, meaning that the 10% crit rate and the crit damage you get from Sparkle's light cone will be able to get refreshed eventually. Is actually not that effective because you regenerate 1 skill point per skill, so it's going to take you 4 skills to re-up the mask, but you're able to do it if that's all you have. It's a decent light cone. It also gives Sunday a little bit of crit damage for himself as well, so it helps him scale his crit damage buff a little bit. So he can actually take advantage of this, which is one of the few people that actually can. Now some honorable mentions. Obviously, Dance 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 is going to be a very strong light cone for pretty much any Harmony that's not Robin. Sunday doesn't have a tough time firing off ultimates. He can fire it off every third or fourth turn, which is pretty good. So Dance 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 advance every 3 or 4 turns is actually not that bad. And you're gonna see a lot of people actually running Dance 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 on 0 cycle runs using Sunday. To help you guys visualize what his energy rotations look like, I made this sheet really quick so I can help you guys figure that out. So this is MOC start with Pure Fiction, Apocalyptic Shadow, or MOC, which this means that you start off with half your ultimate, right? So on turn 1, if you have the energy recharge rope in Fushaka plus the signature light cone, you're going to start out your first turn being able to ultimate after using your first skill, and then after that you're going to be able to ultimate on turn 4 as well. So with the energy recharge rope, Lushaka, and the signature light cone, you're going to be able to ult turn 1, turn 4, and then every third turn after that. So it'd be turn 7, turn 10, or whatever. You'll be able to fire off the ultimate, because after this first ult, it follows this exact same 3-turn rotation. And as you can see, it's 130 ultimate and you're at 148. So you're pretty much overshooting it by quite a lot. So unless you get CC'd in one of these turns, then that's the only way that you're not going to be able to fire off your ultimate. But if you build a little bit of effect rest, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, let's say you only have energy recharge rope and no Lushaka, you're still going to be able to ult turn 1 and then also ult turn 4. Nothing really changes if you have the signature light cone. So that's what I was meaning earlier, that if you have the signature light cone, you can get away with not using the 5 energy recharge rate planar set, and you can go for Broken Keel or something else. Now, let's say you're using Bronya's light cone here. That means you have 134.4 energy recharge rate. This gets you exactly 130 for you to be able to fire off your ultimate in turn 1. However, it's not enough energy for you to fire off your ultimate on turn 4. However, you do have 4 turns for you to get hit once. If you get hit once in any of this turn, so let's say you get hit and you get a hit for 5, which is the lowest amount of hit you can get, you're going to be able to fire off your ultimate here on turn 4. So if you get hit in any of these turns, well, actually after turn 1, so you have turn 2, 3, and 4 to get hit. If you get hit in any of these turns, you're going to be able to get your ultimate. But remember that you have to get your ultimate before you use your skill. So essentially you only have turn 2 and 3 to get hit. So 2 turns to get hit. There's a lot of AoE hits in the game right now, so it's very, very likely to have this happen. So if you get hit on any single turn at all, it's going to give you the ultimate on turn 3. So that's the only caveat there. So let's say you have energy recharge rope and Bronya's light cone. This gives you 129.4 energy recharge rate. You're just 1 point shy of getting your ultimate on turn 1. This means that you're going to have to get hit before here. The good thing is that it's happening on turn 1. So you can just refresh that stage until you get hit with Sunday. And then that way you're going to be able to get your ultimate here on turn 1, and then it'll follow this rotation right here, and then you're going to be able to get your ultimate every 4 turns unless you get hit here. Because if you get hit with an elite hit gets you 10 energy, I think it is. If you get 10 energy from 122, you're going to be able to ult on turn 3. So it really much all depends. If you don't have a signature light cone and you're running Bronya's light cone, it really depends on how much you get hit. Like if you get hit once or twice, then you're going to be able to get your ultimates consistently. Now, the final one is going to be energy recharge rope and Lushaka, no signature light cone, meaning you're running past and future, meaning you're running Dance Dance Dance, meaning you're running Sparkle's light cone. You are going to be 3 shy, so again, just reset until you get hit. And then after you get hit, you're going to have to get, you're going to get your ultimate every 4 turns. However, if you get hit twice, let's say do we have this formula set up? Yeah, we do. Okay, so if you get hit twice here, so let's say you get 20 here, right? You get 20. Boom, you have 143. Actually, if you get hit by an elite, it only gives you 15. You get the 136, or you're going to be able to fire off your ultimate. So if it depends on really if you get hit or not. Same thing goes over here. You can get it every 4 turns after your first ultimate. First turn, get hit, reset until you get hit Sunday, and then after you fire off your ultimate, it follows this rotation right here. On the 3rd turn, if you get hit twice by an elite, then you're going to be able to fire off your ultimate. If you don't, then you're going to have to wait for turn 4. But at the very latest, you're going to do it every 4 turns, and at the very earliest, you can get it every 3rd turn. So hopefully that made sense. Hopefully I made it a little bit more simple for you guys to understand. All right, talking about teams and synergies, Sunday pushes out Bronya and Tingyon out of every team they're on currently, and on teams that they're both on, it pretty much opens up a whole new slot in that team because he does both things at the same time And this is actually insane for some of the characters that we have in the game right now. But since there's so many different DPSs, so many characters that benefit from Sunday, I'm just going to give you a couple archetypes of teams that you can pretty much mix and match. So the first one is going to be the summon focus with Jinyuan. You can run Jinyuan now, Topaz, Crit Lingsha. You can run Remembrance Trailblazer when he comes out, or Aglia whenever she comes out. Is going to be the main DPS, is going to be whoever the summon character is. Then Sunday is a buff summon, action advanced energy, we already know. You can run Robin Sparkle depending on what the character is. If it's another like hybrid break character, you can also run Ruan Mei in here. Pretty much another damage amplifier fits on this slot. And then your sustain, which in a team like this will probably be Huahua or Lingsha or Adventurine or Fushuan, which are the top tier sustainers we have currently. Having Huahua as a sustain opens up this team to have a really energy efficient team with 2 energy batteries pretty much powering the entire team. The example for this team is going to be Jinyuan. Jinyuan benefits from every single thing that Sunday does, from the summons, from the action advance, from the crit damage, from the energy. He benefits from absolutely everything. Like, he just got an absolute monstrous buff with the release of Sunday. With this team, Jinyuan can have a fully stacked Lightning Lord pretty much every other time he uses a skill, which is really insane because of Sunday's action advance and ultimate and energy regeneration. A team like this with Jinyuan, you can expect your MOC runs to be at about 2 to 4 cycles on MOC 11 and 12, which is pretty respectable for a character that released on 1.1. Another character that got a huge buff here is going to be Dan Han and Baby Little Nay. He's my boy. With Sunday's action advance, energy battery, and the SP economy that he brings, you can actually run harmonies like Robin in this team instead of Sparkle, because if you manage your skill points correctly, you don't have to run Sparkle with the excess skill points, which opens up this team for extra help from harmonies like Ruan Mei or Robin or even Zhao Xiao in some cases. So Sunday fulfilling those 2 roles in just 3 roles really in one go is very, very strong. Personally, I like to run Sparkle here instead of Robin. It's because I like my Dan Han Beard Lune to take more turns instead of having a couple of strong turns. And this is also because I don't have E1 Robin. If I had E1 Robin, then E1 Robin would probably be the preferred harmony in this slot almost 100% of the time. And like I said before, Ruan Mei also fit this slot, and especially my Ruan Mei is E1. So yeah, my Ruan Mei will probably fit this slot really, really well. For the sustain portion in this team, Huahua is by far the best option because you have energy to recharge your Dan Han Baby Lune coming from Sunday and now Huahua, which means that your ultimate is going to be fired off very, very frequently. And in my case, I have E2 Dan Han, like my ultimate is super important. So this setup right here is going to be insanely strong, at least in my account. And if you decide to run the Robin variant, running Quid Pro Quo Huahua actually is very, very strong because Robin is more than likely the one that's going to be getting the Quid Pro Quo at least for a few turns, which makes it extremely, extremely valuable because that makes it to where when Robin gets out of her concerto, you can go right back in it after a skill or a basic. And it's a good segue for our next character that got a really decent buff with Sunday, which is Jingliu. Jingliu got a really good set, and now with Sunday, she is going to pop off a little bit more. I don't think she's going to be like that crazy anymore, but she did get a decent buff because before you were able to run Ting Yun and Bronya and then Huahua on the team with Jingliu, but now you can pretty much condense Ting Yun and Bronya into one and then run like Pella or run Ruan Mei or even Robin you can run in there because you are condensing 2 slots of harmonies into just one, which is absolutely insane. Also, you know, Bronya used to be the one that consumed all the skill points in that team, but now Sunday's going to be the one regenerating skill points instead of Bronya taking them away, which means the team has more skill points to use in case of emergencies. Like, I'm starting to mention Huahua quite a lot now. Like, I don't know, inadvertently, Huahua got a little chunky buff too with Sunday, not gonna lie. All right, the next archetype is going to be the ult focus archetype, which is pretty much what we've been talking about the whole time. Essentially the same thing, but with characters like Argenti and Yun Li. DPS is going to be them, obviously. Sunday is going to be obviously in the primary support area. And then the 2 other slots are going to be Huahua and Ting Yun. Now, in this team, you have 3 energy batteries to power up Argenti and Yun Li, making them fire off ultimates left and right. And this is one of the archetypes that I'm more excited about. I'm actually very hyped in the future when we get another harmony or another character that buffs energy for the team to replace one that's a little bit stronger than 4-star Tingyun, to replace it. And then these ult focus teams are going to be so crazy. I'm actually very excited about that. But in these ult focus teams, you can actually forego the 3rd energy battery in Tingyun and then replace it for a damage amplifier like Zhao Q or like Ruan Mei or Robin. I prefer Zhao Xiao in these scenarios because Zhao Xiao buffs ultimates by 50%, which is insane. So expect some of those teams to be floating around as well. And then finally, you know it's not an iSUMMON video without me glazing up our boy Boothill. One of Boothill's best teammates is Bronya, and their main issue on that team is SP economy, which Sunday pretty much gets rid of entirely and replaces it with energy, battery, and SP economy. So Bronya pretty much gets replaced entirely in Boothill teams, which alleviates this issue by a lot, making the team run buttery smooth and also giving him extra energy when he needs to implant that physical weakness more often, which I don't know, it's just made, it feels like they were made for each other. And hopefully with the release of Fugue, this team will get another buff because we're going to be able to run Boothill Sunday, Ruan Mei, and Fugue. It's going to be absolutely insane. I can't wait for that. Now let's talk to my whales a little bit. His pull priority, his signature Lycon is very strong, provides a lot of SP economy with extra energy for his ultimate uptime and also extra damage for the characters. However, Bronya's Lycon, as I previously mentioned, is very, very similar. So if you already have Bronya's Lycon or you already have multiple super impositions of Bronya's Lycon, his Sunday signature Lycon's value drops slightly a little bit. If you want to min-max your Sunday, then obviously the best choice is going to be the signature Lycon. However, if you can manage with Bronya's Lycon, then it's okay. It's a good option for you to have. But if you decide to go that route, keep in mind that his signature Lycon's buffs are stronger and they last longer. So it just depends on what you want to like give away. Now, compared to his E1, there is not really any way of making up what his E1 does. 16% defense ignore on the character and then 40% defense ignore on the summons. It's actually pretty crazy. It's really strong. You may not feel like it is strong right now because you're not a Jing Yuan main or whatever the case may be. Only 60% defense ignore for you right now. But remember that summons and servants are coming to the game in the next patch. So 40% defense ignore on summons is actually a crazy amount. Think of Pella. Think of what makes Pella so good. She has a 40% defense ignore AoE every 3rd turn, right? Imagine having that every single turn on your DPS and the DPS is summoned. Like, it's actually insane. So if you are between the E1 or the S1, it really depends if you have a Bronya's Lycon and if you can manage with Bronya's Lycon. If you can, then get the E1, but if you can't, then get the S1. But in my opinion, the E1 is going to bring the most longevity to Sunday because of that 40% defense ignore on the summons. It's actually very crazy. His E2 is decent, but it's nothing crazy. It only makes him more SP friendly, making his ultimate regain 2 skill points on the first use, which you can actually misuse this and overcap on skill points. You know, like you could do that. So you could make this E2 mean nothing if you don't know what you're doing or if you just like not paying attention. And then the damage bonus goes up by 30%, which is it's okay. It's not crazy, but it's not bad either. His E4 is good because it makes his ult more frequent. However, it's really not that much of a difference because if you go back on the video and you look at the tables and you add 8 energy on anywhere in there, the only way, the only place that it makes any sense is if you don't have a signature Lycon. Like adding 8 energy anywhere in that table only helps if you don't have a signature Lycon. But why would you have an E4 Sunday without a signature Lycon? It makes no sense. But if you want a little bit more energy, there you go. E4 is there. Now his E6 is a little bit crazy. It makes his crit rate buff stack 3 times, which means you get 60 crit rate. And then once you reach 100% crit rate on your DPS, every 1% of crit rate after that gets converted into crit damage, which means for every 1 crit rate, you get 2 crit damage. So if you, let's say you overshoot your crit rate by 20, that means you get 40 crit damage. It may not seem like a lot, but when you're getting an extra 60% crit rate, and let's say your build is already at 80, that means you're already at 140 crit rate. You're already getting 80% crit damage. So you're over, like, your crit damage is gonna skyrocket at that E6, which is actually very, very strong. In my opinion, it's not as strong as, like, let's say Robin's E6 or Ruan Mei's E6, or even Sparkle's E6, but is a very, very strong E6 for my whales over there. Overall, Sunday is going to be a top tier Harmony for a very, very long time. I believe he's going to be the premier Harmony for the entirety of the 3.0 patch. All the way to 4.0, he's going to be the top creme de la creme our Harmony support. Even with other Harmony supports coming out, I don't think they're going to dethrone our Sunday anytime soon. He's going to be a fantastic addition to anybody's account. So if you are planning on pulling for him, go right ahead. He's a great, great option. All right, that's going to be the end of my guide. Let me know what you guys think about Sunday. Are you going to be pulling for Sunday? Leave it in the comment section below. And until next time, guys. See ya.